wise person once said, learn from the mistakes of others. You won't live long enough to make them all yourself. Perhaps you've heard it said, and originally I don't know who first came up with the phrase, those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Well, I would say history has shown that to be true many times over, hasn't it? In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, for instance, the Apostle Paul gives some bad examples of the actions or choices of some of the children of Israel when they were in the wilderness. And in each act of rebellion against God, they were punished for it as well. And one of the things or primary points that Paul is trying to make here, as you look at verse 11, it says this: now all these things happened to them as examples, and they were written for our admonition, or warning, by the way, upon whom the ends of the ages have come. Therefore, let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. In other words, when you think about the Old Testament, one of the things that as Christians we glean when we read the Old Testament is look at the mistakes of others and see what happened to them, and don't go down the same path that they went down. Beyond the children of Israel in the wilderness, for instance, I think about the flood in the days of Noah. One of the powerful things I think we can learn about that is what the majority of people believe and how the majority of people live doesn't mean it's always right. At that time, I'm sure many thought Noah was crazy preaching about a global flood and to get right with God, but Noah was right, wasn't he? Perhaps we can learn from David, and one of the lessons in a negative way we learn from David is trying to cover up a sin by committing another sin. For instance, when he had his affair with Bathsheba and then sought to murder her husband to cover it up. Well, it only brought David hardship for the rest of his life, didn't it? Maybe we can learn from his son Solomon that you can have it all, whether it be fame, wealth, power, possessions, but if you don't have God, what have you really gained? And what meaningful life have you really lived? I do think we can also learn as a nation from the Jewish nation as they repeatedly rejected God. Sometimes their sins were a punishment in and of themselves, but in rejecting God also led to their demise too from other nations. The next time, in other words, we're reading the Old Testament, yes, the first thing I think we need to do as we read the Old Testament, one, what did it originally mean to the hearers when it was written or spoken to them? But then two, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, I think it's good to ask, what kind of mistakes did they make that we need to avoid? And what kind of courageous things and righteous things did they do that we need to imitate?